dawn. The Colosseum is already alive. Its arches catch the first pale streaks of sunlight. On the stones, the shadow of yesterday's blood. Vendors shout beneath the stands. Olives, watered wine, all ready before the crowd even sits down. Beyond the iron gates, lions pace with ribs showing. Panthers claw the bars. Elephants slam the ground in fury. From the tunnels, the clang of swords. Not practice. The test of steel meant for killing. Tens of thousands pour into the seats, hungry for the one thing Rome perfected better than anyone: death, packaged as entertainment. The Roman arena was never just sport. It was cruelty, sharpened into policy. Emperors staged naval battles on sand, starved beasts to fuel suspense, forced prisoners to play out myths that always ended in real corpses. And the roar from the crowd wasn't harmless. It was loyalty, shouted loud enough to echo through history. Today, we're stepping into that shadow, into the blood, the screams, and the games that went too far, even for Rome. From funeral fights to executions disguised as theater, we'll uncover how an empire built glory on suffering. So before the gates open, hit subscribe. You don't want to miss our next descent into history's darkest corners. Now, take your seat. The sand is waiting. The first gladiatorial fight in Rome didn't begin with gold, trumpets, or emperors. It began at a funeral. 264 BC. The sons of Decimus Junius Brutus Sceva wanted to honor their father, not with statues, not with prayers, with blood. They armed 3 pairs of slaves and threw them into combat in the Forum Boarium, a cattle market stinking of dung and smoke. This wasn't fun, it was duty. A munus, an obligation owed to the dead. The roots ran deeper than Rome. In Campania, warriors were killed at graves to calm restless spirits. Over time, random killings became ritual combat. The Samnites fought duels, and Romans eagerly borrowed the custom. To bury a man with treasures showed wealth. To bury him with a blood-soaked spectacle showed power. But funerals were only the beginning. By the 3rd century BC, Rome's leaders saw something bigger. Gladiator fights weren't just about the dead, they were about the living. Religious festivals once meant for Jupiter now featured duels. The Senate called it piety. The people knew the truth. This was state-sponsored violence, a tool to keep loyalty burning. Even the armor told stories. Fighters dressed like Rome's conquered enemies. The Samnite with his heavy shield, the Thracian with his curved blade, the Gaul with his broad sword. Each slash replayed Rome's victories. Death became propaganda, and the venues grew. Wooden stands turned into stone amphitheaters, temples to violence. The games no longer belonged to grieving families. They belonged to the state. Every drop of blood whispered the same message. Rome ruled men, armies, even death itself. What began as sacrifice had become obsession. Rome had discovered a new weapon. Power not just over life, but over the meaning of dying. The roar wasn't only for men. Sometimes it thundered for beasts dragged from the farthest edges of the known world. Lions from Africa, leopards from the Caucasus, crocodiles from the Nile, even giraffes hauled across deserts, not displayed as wonders of nature, displayed as prey. Romans called it venatio, the hunt, not about survival, about domination, proof that Rome could trap the wild, chain it, and destroy it for fun. Julius Caesar set the tone. In 46 BC, he paraded the first giraffe ever seen in Europe. They called it a camelopard, half camel, half leopard, and then threw it into the arena to be slaughtered. The message was clear. If Rome could seize creatures no one had ever named, it could conquer anything. The scale only grew. When the Colosseum opened in AD 80, Emperor Titus oversaw the deaths of more than 9,000 animals in one festival. Bones tell us lions and bears were starved beforehand to guarantee easy kills. Even elephants, once Hannibal's terror, were butchered for cheers. Behind the scenes, the logistics were insane. Caravans dragged cages across deserts. Fleets ferried beasts down rivers. Handlers risked their lives just to deliver living trophies, all so a panther could leap from a cage before 50,000 screaming Romans. Every creature was a souvenir of conquest, proof that the empire had no limits. Some emperors made the hunts their personal stage. Commodus dressed as Hercules, slaying chained animals to inflate his ego. The crowd cheered, but out of fear, not respect. And the price? Species vanished. Lions, leopards, elephants pushed toward extinction. The Colosseum wasn't just a theater of death, it was an ecological wrecking ball. But for Rome, extinction didn't matter. The only thing that mattered was proving that nature itself could be captured, starved, and destroyed. When you picture a gladiator, you might imagine two noble fighters locked in fair combat. The truth: Rome thrived on imbalance. Prisoners were thrown in with wooden swords against seasoned killers. Some fought blind, their helmets muffling sound and sight. Armor that was punishment, not protection. The crowd laughed as victims stumbled and died. Public execution disguised as sport. Weapons became characters. The retiarius with his net and trident against the secutor, whose smooth helmet deflected the net. It wasn't about skill. It was suspense, a living riddle played out in blood. Numbers grew obscene. One man against several. Entire units clashing like miniature armies. And when that got old, female gladiators, the gladiatrices, mocked by writers, but very real, fighting dwarfs, beasts, even each other. No one, man or woman, was beyond Rome's hunger for spectacle. Every twist, every mismatch, every gender-bending stunt, carefully designed to shock. The arena never settled for repetition. It hunted novelty, and cruelty was the fuel. By midday, the games shifted, from combat to theater, not plays, executions. Rome called it damnatio ad bestias, condemnation to the beasts. Criminals, deserters, prisoners of war, forced to play out myths that ended in real death. Orpheus, torn apart by animals. Prometheus, chained as vultures circled overhead. These weren't stories anymore. They were blood-drenched performances. Punishments fit the crime: thieves devoured by wolves, arsonists burned alive, traitors thrown to lions, morality plays written in blood. Trajan's celebrations after victory over Dacia lasted 103 days. Thousands of captives slaughtered, every death timed, paced, staged, to keep the audience hooked. The cruelty escalated. Crucifixions in the arena, prisoners burned alive, turned into human torches. As the Christian writer Tertullian put it, living torches. Even the Colosseum itself was engineered for cruelty. Channels under the sand allowed flooding for naval battles, draining for the next day's fights. Rome turned water, fire, and flesh into stage props. Some emperors turned the arena into their personal playground. Caligula once ran out of animals mid-show and ordered spectators dragged from the stands to die instead. Nero dressed prisoners as tragic heroes, then killed them in ways that matched their roles. He called it art. Rome called it madness. Commodus, the ultimate showman, stormed into the arena as Hercules, slaughtering animals crippled beforehand, fighting gladiators only when the fight was rigged. The crowd clapped because silence was dangerous. Even good emperors weren't free. Trajan's victories meant 103 days of slaughter. Power demanded blood. The games fed egos, but also destroyed them. Caligula and Commodus both died violently, remembered not for governance, but for theater soaked in blood. Not all Romans cheered. Philosophers and poets saw the rot. Seneca admitted the executions hardened his soul. Cicero condemned cruelty for cruelty's sake. Christians saw the arena as both persecution and proof, their faith tested in fire and blood. Tertullian called the shows seeds of cruelty, and economically, the games bled the treasury dry. Emperors bankrupted themselves chasing spectacles grand enough to outshine their predecessors. What began as strength ended in desperation. By the 5th century, the Colosseum stood hollow, its seats empty, its sand silent. But the questions never died. Can a society that teaches its people to cheer for suffering survive? History's answer was Rome itself. Today, the Colosseum still looms, scarred but proud. Walk its tunnels, and you may still hear echoes. Iron clashing, beasts roaring, 50,000 voices rising as one. It's easy to admire the stone, harder to face its truth. Cruelty rehearsed until it felt normal. Rome's arenas weren't just about blood, they were about control. Every hunt, every execution, every myth reborn in screams served one purpose: to make power look eternal. And that is the warning carved into the ruins. A civilization that glorifies violence eventually crumbles beneath its own applause. So tell me, which of these spectacles best reveals Rome's darkest soul? The hunts, the living torches, or the emperors drunk on their own theater? Drop your thoughts below. And if this journey into Rome's brutality gripped you, hit subscribe. Until next time, remember, the Colosseum may be quiet now, but its echoes of cruelty still breathe through the stones.